Hello, my beautiful bees. Today, I want to talk about a question that I got inside of Fuck Codependency that I feel like can be so beneficial. This is from a mother, but it can be applied to really anyone that is going through the need to want to shift other people, and how do I match my energy and trust other people when I'm on this journey of self-trust, and how do I give grace to someone that I can't step away from, but I feel them pulling away from me, and I feel the way that they're living their lives impacting mine. So I want to talk about that today. Before we dive into that, hi, if you're new to my world, let me know. This is a space where we come together. It's more than social media. Yes, we use it in that way, but how I want this platform to be is it a space to be yourself, to share vulnerably, to, tap in to someone that has walked a journey that you maybe have walked a similar path and came out on the other end, and you can identify and be like, holy pickles, I'm not alone. That is what we do here. My name is Laura Patricia Martin. I'm a trauma specialist. I have walked the ringer of my life. I studied all this stuff, and I came out to now help hundreds of women regulate their nervous system, specifically career-driven women regulate their nervous system so that they can accumulate more wealth, so that they can have these orgasmic relationships, so that they can create the life that they want to remember in hindsight and start to really just become the artists of their own lives. And what I'm going to share with you today is from inside of one of our programs. It is no longer for sale. We will be running it again, but it's called Fuck Codependency. Case in point, it's to heal codependency. And it's a big topic that I hear inside of my VIPs and my one-on-ones. And so if you're a woman that is currently going through a transitional period in her life, and you're just feeling overwhelmed by it all, and you want something that'll take you from good to great, something that's personalized, something that shines a light on the voice you want to bring to life during that pivot. You're doing things in your life because you're quote unquote supposed to be doing them, but you want to bring something that is more authentic, more self-expressed, more bold to life. I am currently running one-on-one intensive. So this is going to be a 55-minute call that we're going to jump on together. It's going to be Zoom. It's recorded. You get the recording. And we're going to bust through all of this and come up with a plan for you. Right now, that's $111. The price will be increasing tomorrow. So if you want to jump in, space is limited. And I will talk about that again at the end. But again, come on, say hello. Share this with someone that you think may benefit from hearing something like this. So the question goes, it's a two-part question, right? Do you have any advice on how to trust others, my daughter, for example, in this process of learning self-trust? I can change my behavior, but what about the feelings that arise when I watch the other person, a person I can't walk away from, just fall away because of the consequences of their actions? And so the first part of this question around how do I trust others in the process of learning to trust myself? Trusting others comes within the process of trusting yourself, because we cannot give people our trust, and we cannot expect others to be the thing that give us this sense of safety and trust and, calibrate our nervous systems to get to this certain way. It only comes from this deep knowing, right? When our external projection and what we put onto the world matches our internal space. We all have that blueprint of what I want my life to be, and then we look at the reflection of what my life is being, and that's where that distrust in who we are starts to play against each other, and that misalignment. That's literally what we do in our world. And so when these things are fighting against each other, then we're having these projections onto other people so that they also don't walk this path of whatever we're trying to work through. We start to project. So this woman's talking about her daughter, right? Like, granted, I'm not a mother. Take this with a grain of salt. But I was one of those kids that was very much a firecracker of a human being. Like, definitely gave my parents PTSD. Never felt I was worthy, acting out all the time. And yet, when I look at how my mother raised me, right? Like, my mother raised me very projection wise. My mom was, hey Stephanie, my mom was an addict, and so she was trying to do everything in her power to protect me from the path that she was fighting herself on. And so my brother could do anything he wanted. He could go out, he could party, he didn't have a curfew, he was allowed whatever, whereas I had 8 p.m. curfew, I had tracking devices on my phone. My door was turned inside out, so I was locked in my room because I like to sneak out. And there were different kind of things that happened because I was the woman, right? Like I was the girl at the time. And so I understand where my mom was coming from now. Granted, she passed away when I was 22 from addiction, so I never got to actually learn this lesson from her, and I don't know if I would have learned this lesson from her if she hadn't passed, unfortunately. But now looking back, I'm able to give the compassion of she was trying to project the fact that she did not trust herself onto me, and therefore then I ended up not trusting myself. So when we're on this journey of like, I'm trying to learn how to self-trust and I want to trust other people, it's not a separate conversation. It's a both and conversation. We learn to trust ourselves, so we stop projecting onto other people, because that's what codependency is, right? Like that's our trauma response living. Like I have a problem going on in my life, and therefore I want it projected, especially to the ones we love. We do this with our partners, we do this with our kids, we do this with our family members. Honestly, I feel like this is a very common story. Our parents project a lot of stuff onto us, and therefore we start to live in a certain way of protection. So the projections of our families then creates this part in our nervous system that then creates this quote unquote protection mechanism, which then is often what leads to this self-sabotage or limiting belief paradigm, or we start to get in our own way and we start to go on these kind of journeys of, questioning like, who am I? And is this belief mine? And so that's what I witnessed in mine, is now I can look back and I can see like, this is what my mom was doing. So for the woman that asked this question, I know her personally, I work with her more one-on-one. It's the journey of, and what we're working through of that self-trust. Because if we're trying to trust, our kids, if we're trying to trust a better one, because I know a lot of us in our community don't have kids, a better one is our partners, right? Like, how do I trust my partner when I'm going on this self-trust journey? Because someone in our lives told us that we cannot be trusted in some way, shape, or form, and that's why we obsess about control, right? Like that's a huge part in my world with, entrepreneurial women, we want to control things so tightly, because therefore it gives us this sense of validation and belonging and like everything is cool. But then we get kind of we begin to get this awareness that the way we've built things no longer truly fits. And Stephanie, let me know if this lands for you. We've started to build this identity around other people's projections, and then where and who we want to be isn't actually who we're being. And it's this like identity crisis that begins to happen. Although we have success, whether it's in career, whether it's in relationship, whether it's in financial, whether it's in school, like we have our success and we're doing the quote unquote things that we're supposed to be doing, but it doesn't quite feel like the right thing. Like what got us there isn't what is going to keep us there and help us create this blueprint. Exactly, like people pleasing. It's such an aspect of, I don't trust myself, so I get my validation from other people's approval of me, even though I don't fucking want to do half the things I'm doing. It's like I don't want to rock the boat because the glass house that I built up around myself, I did that with my household, right? Like growing up, granted, my mom she was like a dry alcoholic. She was an addict in her early years when she was in her 20s. And then she was a dry addict when I was growing up. And then after my parents' divorce at 16, she lost it and ultimately ended up having a, they call it like an addict death. She fell down a flight of stairs, but it's an addiction death at 22 years old. Or when I was 22, she was 52. And so looking at these aspects and being like, it was always this glass box of like, don't rock the emotionally unstable household, right? So everything is a people-pleasing thing. That's where codependency came from. And then that's where, after being such a rebel when I was young, because we have the rebel and the good girl, right? Like our archetypes as kids. After being such a rebel and being told I was wrong and being told I can't be trusted and being told all these kind of things, I then went the complete opposite of like, let me then become the good girl, right? Because I had scared myself so much because I started to walk the same path as my mom, near-death experiences, abusive relationships, domestic violence, all the things, right? Like the same thing she had tried to protect me from, I actually ended up walking at the same age too that she did. And so I became that people pleaser thing, and that just totally lost in it. And then not knowing how to, because I had built up this company, right? Like the first version of Healing to Happy was a gut health public speaking company in Asia. Very fucking successful, 6-figure brand, built up, impactful, speaking on stages at universities and hospitals, magazines. Like it was a very successful brand. But it was so not me. And it got to a point of just like, I had built this up, and although it had gotten me out of the darkest days of my life, it now was just like, this isn't me. This isn't an expression of myself. And so now you guys are seeing this new evolution of our brand into Trauma and Evolution. Wasn't trusted so much, became hyper responsible. You're going to touch. Thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, it's one of those things where it is just like when you're told you're not trusted, you're like, okay, let me be mega responsible and let me have control over everything and let me get lost in it. And so the follow-up to her question, which might land for you, is I can change my behavior. What about the feelings that arise when I watch the other person, a person I can't walk away from, just fall away because of the consequences of their actions? And what I told her in the module, this was like the bonus Q&A that we did, was that is codependency, right? Like that to a T is codependency, because we can't save anyone. We can't save anyone. You know, I look back on my life and I remember when, hey Laura, I remember when my mom passed in November, and I had a conversation with her on her birthday, which was in September. And I remember like she was sitting there, she wasn't eating her food, throwing a temper tantrum like she was a kid. And I had took her wine away because she wasn't eating her food like a child. So I took it away and she started crying. And I was like, okay. And I was like, if you don't get your shit together, you're going to die. 2 months later, she died. And that haunted me for a very long time until I did the healing work that I now teach, preach, and like own to my soul. But then I moved into another relationship with an addict once I moved to Asia and got into this whole scenario of my life that changed my entire life, where the codependency and the trauma bonding and that kind of came into my awareness, not even knowing that's how I was living my life. But as painful as that is, right? Like that is the worst thing we could ever think of. Right? Like the person we're trying to save dies. That's the worst case scenario. And that could be something that is clenching in you because you might be navigating codependency and it might be getting in your way and being like, well, if I move forward, if I do this, if I set a boundary, if I do this, that may happen, Laura. And it's like, yes, it fucking may. And I'm here to tell you that I am on the other side of that. And it is so okay. And yes, that sucks, but that is their journey. If you don't believe in that, and that might be hard for you, and that might be triggering for you, because I don't know if that would be something I'd be able to swallow right now if I was in the midst of it as well. But knowing and telling you, I have been in and out of 12-step programs, like in Al-Anon and support groups. I've worked in rehabs. I've worked with addicts. I've worked with recovering addicts and things of that nature. Like, we can't stop people from going down the routes that they're meant to go on, right? We can just ask better questions, ourselves included, of if someone's going down this path of detaching and they're, self-destructing and they're acting out in certain ways, they chose that path. They chose that path before the lifetime, before they even got to this planet, because at the end of the day, your kids, your partners, your people, they chose it. Right? And they had to learn a lesson. That's why we all have our life experiences, so that we can come out of it and tell a story and learn from it, hopefully. Right? And as we start to walk this path and really look at what can I control about me? What can I control in my energy, in my arena? so that I can feel regulated? Can I ask better questions of like, what is your purpose? What is your passion? Where do you want to belong? Like, that's what I've witnessed when it comes to it, addicts and people in that arena, is just like the struggling with that internal identity of who they want to be, and, you know, the drugs and the alcohol that amplify them to give them that false identity of self. Like, it's more so like, where is your purpose in life and where do you want to go? And, you know, the feelings that arise when I watch that other person, right? Like that part of the question as they fall away because of the consequences of their actions. It's, you know, what they call in Al-Anon is they call it detaching with love. And so Al-Anon is a support group for children and partners of addicts and parents of addicts, which I did their 12 steps and all that kind of stuff when I was in partnership with the addict after my mom. And that's what they talk about. Can you detach with love? And more than that, can you start to really look at, how is this impacting my life and my belief and the way I show up for the world? You know, I remember when I was going through all of this and I wanted to change my partner's behavior, being like, you're so much better than this, because underneath this wounded man was a heart, was a soul that was just trying to come through. Like, I saw that so clear as day, but there was this broken armor that was on someone's body. And instead of looking at what can I do to make me feel safe, it was like, how can I fix that person? How can I show them their light? How can I do these kind of things? And so I'm going to reflect back to you what has been my biggest thing. How can you start to see your light again? How can you start to really tap into that self-trust and that self-honoring and that self-expression and your passions and your purpose, and trusting that that person is going to take care of themselves, and you can love them. You can ask them better questions. You can be involved in their life at a distance, but we can't save other people. Because the way we think how we're supposed to do stuff doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And that might be where the conflict arises. Because often we project our way of living, our beliefs, what we've learned in the self-development world and what we read on the internet and what we heard on podcasts and all that kind of stuff. We believe it so deeply in our core that we start to speak and project instead of listen, instead of seeing someone for who they are and where they're at. And in that process, we lose ourselves. We lose our sense of self-trust. We lose our sense of drive. We lose our sense of, you know, investing in ourselves to heal this stuff. And, you know, it's like, oh, I'll do that work when that person is better, when they're not acting out, when they feel in this arena. And if I can tell you one thing, the best thing I ever did was get into the arenas, going into Al-Anon, hiring the mentors, getting the therapist, doing the nervous system regulation, getting the naturopath to heal all the chronic health issues, and not waiting for my partner to catch up at the time. Because then I would have never become me, truthfully. And so those feelings that arise, it's writing that permission slip that of course they are. Of course they are, because we care about the people that we love about most. Of course it's hard. Let yourself express that. Let yourself feel it. Let them be known. And then how can you take care of honor and honor you? How can you start to look at yourself as the person that's healing instead of putting all the energy into them and what they should be doing? And if they would just get, help, then I would somehow be happy. And if they would just get help, then somehow I would just be regulated and I could take care of me and all that kind of stuff. It's you put yourself first and they match that vibration. right? At the end of the day, we can't save other people. And we can't keep putting our healing on the back burner until those other people get to our level. It's up to you to rise. And that's why I love my program so much, why I love moms like this, or women that jump into different programs, or my high level mentorships, or my VIPs and my, intensive, because you're choosing yourself first. They're writing the permission slips for themselves first. They're not waiting for the circumstance to get better. They're claiming that they're going to work on themselves to make it better. It's not that it goes away. They just start to create the tools in their lives so that they can handle it better without losing themselves and feeling like they are empowered in a situation that once made them powerless. That is the journey of the work. It is not that things don't happen. It's that we stop letting them control our entire lives when they do. And now that we have the tools, we know what to do. It no longer comes from a space of like, holy fuck, I'm screwed and it's going to self-implode and all these kind of things. It's like, this isn't ideal, and I can breathe, I can trust, I can do, I can lean back, I have the tools. I'm okay, I'm safe. And so if you're going through these motions right now and you're feeling like you're lost in that journey of self-trust, and like people's emotions are impacting the way that you trust yourself, and having a hard time showing up for yourself, or even, feeling like you want to do certain things, like hire the mentors or go on the trips or create your life and start to do these things of that vision that you have for yourself, and your life isn't actually aligning with it because of things like this. I see you so much. And to remove yourself from that, you have to do the uncomfortable thing and get yourself out of your own way. Okay? And so I love you. I see you. I honor you. You are so strong to even be asking questions like this or to have this type of reflection. And if you are one of those women that wants to jump in, we have so many offers available, whether it's high level one-to-one, whether it's group programs, whether it's masterminds, whether it's Voxer support, quick burst, whether it's the intensives, the, one-offs, whether it's a program so that you can elevate where you're already at. Like, there are so many ways for you to tap into our world. It just takes you making that leap, right? So I invite you to take that leap. I invite you to share this with someone that this may resonate with. I invite you to, comment, like, review, all the kind of things that come with this, because it really does help to start the conversation around this stuff and start to break the stigma and rewrite the narratives around conversations around self-abandonment and self-trust and, trauma, right? It just normalizes it to really talk about the things that are keeping us stuck and really where we want to go in this world and start to elevate and, become these grounded, relaxed, bold, unbreakable women, right? So if that is you, there are so many ways. My door is always open. I love you so, so much. And I will see you somewhere on the internet. Happy healings.